Hello! How are we all doing? Hopefully you can hear me. I'll wait for the thumbs up from Mike while I watch the end of the match. 10 minutes injury time. They shouldn't do this to me. This is all carefully arranged. Do they not realise? But never mind. Mike's still waiting. Oh! Got the thumbs up. Hello to each and every one of you. Right, I'm going to need to make that bigger. I've taken to making the chat bigger after I've gone live, because when I did it before, I had problems with the buttons and things like that. Right, so how are we? How are we all doing? There is quite a few of you in the chat, so hello to each and every one of you. First on my list, that doesn't mean you were first, it's just YouTube, you know. Kim. Cold and wet Seattle. It's a little bit fresh here, is what I would say. A little bit fresh. But you will see that in the week at MacBites headquarters. Right, okay. I need to do one thing, because why is it I check everything and it's fine, and then I go live and then it's not? That. But never mind, you won't see the join. I swear you won't, while I get rid of the errand item on the slide. There is an errand item on the slide before we get going. Right, let's try that again, shall we? And I think we're okay there. Over here, back over there, click the button, and we're good to go. Right, what have we got tonight? We have an update to Vivaldi. It's not bad, but I could think of sexier things I would rather have in there. Then we've got reviving legacy files. This was based on a question last week, and I found some ways to do it. And there's a bit of humour in there as well with something else I found while I was looking for the files to revive. Then we've got making magic with your clipboard. It's more interesting than it sounds. Trust me, you're going to like this. Then we've got some freebies, extra freebies, because, you know, we're in the middle of our Advent calendar freebies. And then we have chaining styles together. Chaining styles isn't really a thing. It isn't. It is, but not in a normal way. In Affinity Publisher. So we will have a look at that. And there are 3 different ways to do it. So that one's going to be interesting. Right, we are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are watching in 1080p. I've just seen the Netherlands have equalised in the last minute of extra time. Oh, so there's another half hour and possibly penalties. Right, make sure you are receiving in HD. So there is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. While you are down there, there is a like button. We like the like button. Hopefully you like the like button. So we'll start with the week at MacBites headquarters. Yes, another one of those weeks. It started well enough, though. Young Jonathan, Mike's got the link for this somewhere. Young Jonathan has got a new toy. He has a toy I don't have. That's not on, is it? But anyway, he has a Kindle Scribe and he has done an unboxing and review for us. So I will put a QR code on there and a link. Make sure you go and put a like on Jonathan's video as well. His unboxings are fabulous. They are. So don't miss that one. New toys. Yes, then Saturday. Yeah, we'd ordered from Asda. There is a reason for this. So, and this has happened with Tesco. Their timekeeping's appalling, but it didn't match up to Asda's. They arrived 3 hours early in 3 deliveries. Seriously. He forgot my treats and then returned with them. Then he returned a 3rd time with Lola's dog food. She was mortified he hadn't made her stuff a priority in the first place, which she told him at a volume and an intensity he won't forget in a while. So, yeah, that was grand. But we'd ordered gluten-free mince pies, and he had no mince pies. There was also a slight issue of the Yule log. He didn't have a Yule log either. I was grumpy. So, on Sunday, there was poor Mike. He spent most of the week trying to buy food. I'll go to Tesco's, he thought, and I'll see if they've... At this stage, he'd put half an order in. And I'll see if they've got what he needs. Yeah, no mince pies. So, poor Tesco's had the entire order cancelled. No mince pies, but that was only the tip of what was out of stock. So, funniest thing was, after Mike cancelled his own order, Tesco sent an email apologising for not being able to deliver the order because, and I quote, something went wrong. Yeah, we cancelled the order because you had no stock. So there was only one thing left to do, and that was go to Sainsbury's. Third time lucky, maybe. We asked the question, do you have mince pies? Yes, they said, we have mince pies. Guess what? No mince pies turned up. Worse than that, they arrived 30 minutes early in the middle of the match. I wondered why wasn't the driver sloping off somewhere watching the match? I don't know. But no mince pies. So, not to be outdone, fourth time lucky, Mike decided to head to Amazon. He was looking for same-day delivery of gluten-free mince pies. Amazon never let you down, do they? We've got them, they said. And what's more, they delivered them. I think they arrived in the match as well. But it was good news all round. England won the match, which meant we progressed on, which left the only thing of the day, the fact that the Yule log is still missing in action. But we did console ourselves with a grand victory. Rather convincing grand victory as well, which took us into Monday. Oh, I was so excited. It was the start of a very good week. There was an update to Obsidian. Canvases were added. Oh, Obsidian is text-based, as we've discussed in previous shows. I called it an integrated development environment for text files, which sums it up nicely. But Canvases have added a visual dimension to it. So, even more reason to cover it in an upcoming show. Let me know if you've tried Canvases. It's only available at the moment to insider builds. You can get an insider build by making a donation to them. The donations start at $25. It's not an annual thing, it's a one-off payment. You just make a donation to them, which is how come I've got access to it. It is a game changer. Trust me on that. It's amazing. Also, following that was the good news. YouTube let me know we've hit the next milestone, which is 21,000 subscribers. So thank you very much if you are indeed one of them. I celebrated with a gluten-free mince pie. We've run out now, haven't we?
No.
Oh, we've got more mince pies. Excellent. So, Tuesday called. Good news for the Windows users amongst you. GoodNotes 5 is the iPad app of the year, they announced, and to celebrate the fact that it is app of the year, and obviously that's on the iPad, but there is a Mac version, they have amazed me by releasing a beta version for Windows. So if you've been using it on an iPad, but you're a Windows user, you are about to be able to get the desktop glory there. Oh, there's one of my darts. Ignore the dart. We headed into Wednesday. Wednesday was the 7th. This was important because I was promised, if you remember, we talked about the Just Mobile AluPen. And last week I ordered a replacement for it, one of the silver ones. Promised by the 7th at the latest, they said. It was $3.99. I think the postage was free, which was just as well. I was waiting for it. It said the 5th to the 7th, so it was the 7th. I was waiting. I was poised. I was ready. We also have surveillance. Okay, let's be more accurate with our surveillance. Yeah, it's more like that. But we do have surveillance. It's monitored 24/7. What could possibly go wrong? Royal Mail. Royal Mail got involved. They're on strike for 9 days in December. I actually hadn't noticed this. Don't know if you had, Mike. They've been on strike for random days since September, and I've not noticed the difference.
I've not noticed. Yeah.
But the 9 days in December, it's a killer. I haven't got my credit card bill, and I need to pay it. And I don't know how much it is. So
it's downstairs.
Oh, that's actually all right. Yeah. Amazing how they managed to get a bill to me, isn't it? But not the toy I'm waiting for. Thanks, Royal Mail. Genius. It was still missing in action, despite the fact it should have been there. I didn't hold out much hope for the next day either, because I was working overnight and it was a bit chilly. As we in the UK say, it was brass monkeys. It was -5. So I'm glancing over at the A lady and I'm thinking -1, -2. And it got to -5. The next morning, everything was frozen solid. So it was a bit cold that night, which took us on to Thursday. I was poised on Thursday. I was out scoping the neighbourhood again for the missing in action stylus, but yet again, Royal Mail let me down. So it didn't arrive the day after either, which took me on to this morning. I was poised, but there wasn't much point. They're on strike. Today is one of the strike days. Don't know about you, but I thought the picket line was a little underwhelming. But then I thought maybe there's football on. Tomorrow, they're back in. Then they're off again on Sunday. How will we notice the difference? And just in case I thought there was even a slight chance that they might deliver tomorrow, they have announced that the UK weather overnight could hit -15. This is like Sweden or somewhere, isn't it? -15, which in old money is 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So a little bit cold. So that was my week. How was your week? Let us know. Right, first thing, Vivaldi.
We have one question.
Oh, we got a question already. Wow, go on.
Yeah, from Carol Leather, who is on the insider track, but she can't work out how to get the new version.
Oh, I can help you with that. Right, let's leave that there. Right, come out of it. Let's whip into Obsidian and show you how to do that. So, oh, right, let's have a look. Need to bring that over here, so let's scoot it down a bit. Right, I have gone into the preferences of Obsidian. So I went to Preferences Obsidian, I use the shortcut key, which takes you into here. You need to go to About, and you need to put a tick in the Receive Insider Builds option, which is the third one down in About. When you've done that, you can choose then to either check for updates, or you can turn this thing on, which will check automatically for you. It will download it automatically, which mine does, but it doesn't get applied until you turn it off and on again. You do have to close it down and then open it up again. But what you will get in here is you'll get underneath here where it says read the changelog, it will tell you what build is available for you. But the key to the insider builds is to put this toggle on, the third toggle. If you don't put that on, then you won't get those builds. Some people decide to donate, but they're not interested in the insider builds because something could be broken in them. You know, they're like beta versions, but that is how you do it. So go do that, and fingers crossed that will work for you. Right, put that over there and head back into here. Oh, Graham's confirming it's bitter cold outside at the moment. Yeah, do you think there seems to be some kind of correlation as far as I'm concerned? This is the coldest I can remember it in a long, long time. And isn't it strange that it seems to be when they've put the price of the gas and the electric up and everything else? And we mean astronomically. So a bill used to be maybe, what, £200, £300 a quarter? And that was quite high. But now it's like £380 a month. So it's 4 times as high as it was. Somebody I follow on Twitter, Facebook, had said that he'd been contacted by the gas stroke electric people to up the limit on the direct debity thing from £300 a month to £800 a month. And they'd see how long that lasted. Like, wow. So, yeah, it's not only is it freezing, it's expensive at the moment as well. Right, okay. Let's go in there. Right, it was Vivaldi 5.6. The emphasis is on Mastodon. Is anybody on that? I've not mastered it myself yet, pun intended. There seems to be so many different servers. I'm not sure like who to trust or whatever. I don't profess to know how it works. Blissfully ignorant, deliberately blissfully ignorant on that one. The Musk's in charge at Twitter thing seems to have just died a sad death, doesn't it? So I don't know now whether it will like pick up and it'll be fine. We can all ignore it, or whether it'll get worse. I don't know. But just in case, there's a Mastodon thing that has been added to Vivaldi. Then there's now a dedicated panel for it as well, but they've created their own server. And if you have a Vivaldi account, I believe you just log in with it and they'll sort you out. So that is one way to do it. I was thinking at this stage, that's lovely, lovely. But can we have some features at all? Anyway, there were a couple of features. You can pin your tab stacks, which was one thing. But of much more significance as far as I was concerned, we have a new search engine called U, which I hadn't heard of, u.com. It's only available for certain countries, though, which, again, that seems weird to me. But I think the majority of you are either in the States or the UK, in which case you're okay. You're also all right if you're in Germany and Canada. But other than that, you're not. So, Renee, forget it. I don't understand that. I don't know why, because people could go in via a private network and test it. I don't understand why you would limit something geographic. It's old style, that. The other change is shiny icons in the preferences. Yeah, I wondered. I mean, it's all doing the same thing. It's just got pretty icons. So I thought, let's have a look at them. Let's have a look at the pretty icons. So I have Vivaldi open over here. I'm going to go into the preferences. Let's do the preferences thing, and there they are. So let's put that in the middle. As I say, not much has changed. You've still got the search at the top, but all the options down the side, they're now grouped not only with a separator, but they're grouped via colour. So we have orange at the top and then the red and the green and so forth. In terms of what's in there, pretty similar. The only place I was fiddling was in the address bar section. I was being greatly inconvenienced when I typed in. I started to type Amazon, and normally it would default to Amazon. It would fill it in, and it wasn't doing. And I thought this might be something that they've tweaked. So over on this right-hand side, you have a huge range of options that are to do with what appears in the address bar when you start typing. So, for instance, you can choose to include your bookmarks or not, include the typed history or not, and you'll see that I don't. If I've typed something in, it could be a one-off, and I don't want to keep seeing things. This was what put me off with Firefox when they added that stupid, was it combi URL or something? It covered up the bookmarks and it never guessed right. I didn't like it, so I turned that one off. I do include the frequently visited pages, and I do include the browser history. But I have been known to tweak all of these to the point of actually turning off the top one, which means just type. Just be done with it. I will report back if it's behaving itself better this week than it did do last week. But yeah, the things that are in here are really the fact that they've changed the interface on the left-hand side, which is nice, but it's not exactly riveting, is it? You know, it's not like adding an amazing feature. It's tweaking it, and that's what they've done with it. So let me know, what browser do you use? Let me know in the chat. Vivaldi's still where it's at, obviously. It is for me. You're still halfway between the two, aren't you?
Me? Yeah.
He's just enjoying the match. That's why he's quiet. Right.
Carol says the update worked, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Just the canvas is to die for. I've got mine colour-coded. So I've got publisher notes in orange and designer in blue and photo in purple. I know, it's the small things, isn't it? And there's me saying that the tweaking that they've done with Vivaldi doesn't matter, it's only the colours. Oh, I'm naughty, I know. But it matters more in Obsidian. I think your Notes app has to just be as perfect as it possibly can be. Right, so it was Carol who mentioned last week CorelDRAW files. So I used to use CorelDRAW. I used to use CorelDRAW and Ventura. So CorelDRAW was the equivalent of Illustrator or Affinity Designer, and Ventura was DTP. So it was a competitor to Microsoft Publisher, and obviously in this day and age it would be InDesign, which didn't even exist at the time, and obviously Affinity Publisher didn't exist either. So I loved both of those, and I do still have some files that are in CorelDRAW format. And I must admit, I didn't worry about it. Some of them, one of them was Birdie. So we have this thing that we do, Munich 58, and the logo is like a phoenix stroke eagle thing.
Carol says she loves you.
Thank you, Carol. I love you too. So I drew Birdie in CorelDRAW. So what I decided to do when I couldn't use CorelDRAW anymore, CorelDRAW, I still had a version of it and I could still export it. So it got exported and it got taken to Illustrator. But full disclosure, I'm not a huge Illustrator fan. I know it's incredibly powerful. It's just not logical the way my brain works. So it's got like nesting in it and all kinds of weirdness that I double click and I'm like, no, I don't want that to happen, but it does. So when I found Sketch worked how my brain worked. And then when that went subscription, I thought, I'm sure I could replace all of this with Affinity Designer. And that's what I did. But CorelDRAW is still going. Not only is CorelDRAW still going, there is a Mac version of CorelDRAW. Don't get excited. Not unless you've got money to burn anyway. It came out about 18 months, 2 years ago. Now, the one in the Mac App Store is just CorelDRAW. It is not the CorelDRAW suite that's got other supporting apps in it. It is just CorelDRAW on its own. The biggest problem with it, yes, let's make sure you don't miss that. It's subscription, which, you know, I pay subscriptions too, but not at $39.99 a month, I don't. Not for just one app like that. I mean, obviously the Adobe Creative Cloud, I think the latest of that is £50-something a month in the UK. But you think what you're getting in that, it's not just Photoshop, it's all the Lightroom stuff, it's Illustrator, it's InDesign, it's the video editing stuff, it's everything. By comparison, I think the value for that is not as good. You could pay £300 a year and get it a little bit cheaper. But guess what? I decided not to bother, which leaves me in the same predicament as Carol with my old files. So let's see what you can do about that. Right, I have some files. This is going to be quite humorous. Right, let's bring these across. So these were my CDR files. CDR files are CorelDRAW files, but as you can see, they are, let me just budge that up a bit and show you. Right, one is a beach, one is the Top Gun logo that I was using on a MacBites poster way back in the day. But the Mac thinks these are mountable drives. That's why it's got that icon. So obviously double clicking it, not going to do any good whatsoever. So these were two that I found and I thought, oh, I wonder what these look like. And I had no idea, and you can't preview them or anything. So the first thing that you could do is, let's get into the Mac App Store. In fact, there we go, Mac App Store. Right, I looked up in there CDR converter, and there's quite a few of them. But when you actually look, I put converter deliberately. I did not put viewer, because viewing them's no good. I would know what was in them, give or take, but it's not as useful as creating myself an editable copy of it. But the ones that came back, a lot of them said viewers. So the first one was a viewer, the second one was a viewer, and there's all kinds of different ones here. You've got version 1, 2, 4, but they all seem to be, looking at the icon, from the same developer. So I started off at the beginning because this one just said get. So I went in and had a look at it. It didn't fare well, I'm afraid. They seemed to have a problem with the text. So it would show the text, but it wasn't the right format or it wasn't in the right place. But as I said, all these things can do is view them. Some of them are free, some of them are ad supported, some of them are paid. So I thought, no, we need something better than this. But there are a few in there if you want to go in and have a look at them. I didn't. So I decided no to that one. What I was working on was the principle of I wanted to have something that didn't need an account, something that didn't need an email address, preferably something that was free, that had a range of output options. So there are 3 sites that I found. So let me get a browser and we'll go look at all 3 of them. Right, so let's do the first one. Right, the difference between these, why have you opened in that window? Just to annoy me. Right. The difference between them is the number of file formats that it can export to. So it's asking at the very top, CDR to SVG converter. SVG is scalable vector graphics, and they are pretty compatible with a lot of apps. So they're not really, like CDR is a proprietary format, all right? SVG is not, which this is telling you underneath. So it's saying a CDR is a CorelDRAW file, but this one is XML-based file extension supporting animation, blah, blah, blah. Right. SVG is a good way to go. But there is a range of stuff. Not that much, but this is limited to vector. You could choose image, and then it will give you some more options. You could choose document, it would make a PDF. And a DXF is a CAD file. Now, that's actually quite useful, because if I didn't have a DFX file and I wanted one for demonstration purposes, I could make one from this. But how good that would be for demonstration purposes would depend really what was on it. Right, so I think Ken's quite right. Would it be cheaper to burn the money than pay the bill? No, actually, you're saying you're being silly. We've contemplated it. Seriously, it's really bad news at the moment. Right, so that's what we've got in here. So we do have a CDR. We do want an SVG out of it. Next thing to do, select the file. So I have the file it's in there, isn't it? So I'm going to select the file. And that's the CDR files. So we'll start with the beach one and open. Now, you can add more files at this point. There was an option that's disappeared. Now I've loaded a file in, but you've got this spanner or wrench option here where you can say text to path. Do you want to convert the text to a path or leave it alone? Now, if you convert the text to a path and you need to edit the text, then that's going to be a whole difficult job. So I'll leave it at no at the moment, but that does mean that the resulting file may be less accurate than it would otherwise be. So it would depend. To be honest, replacing the text isn't the time-consuming job with this. If you've got a graphic, you could probably replace the text much faster than you could replace the graphic elements. So have a play around with this depending on, how much text is in it and how much work it would be to make it editable. But I will leave it at no. We will leave it alone. Right? And then hit convert. Now, as I say, with this one, you can add more files. Some of them have to do it one file at a time, but this one you can add more to it. So I'll hit convert, and this one is really fast. Can I just say that this was a long time ago? I can do better now. This was a demo file that I'd made. So it gives you a preview, and that is pretty much what it looks like. I remember that. I remember those umbrellas, and I remember the starfish and the boats. So I'm going to download that. That will download to my downloads folder, and it will download the SVG. So it's saying at the top, Beach SVG. So that is the first one. And as you can see, there's not much in the way of adverts. It's not that intrusive. I've not needed to create an account or anything. So I was quite happy with that. Right, there are two others that I tried. So the second one is online CDR conversion. Because my notes are in a browser on the other window, it's insisting on opening them over there, but I'll bring them across. This one looked like a little bit more work, as though, there may be adverts on this. But it's all features that are in the service. So same principle, drop or upload your file. So for this one, I'm going to try a different one. I have the Top Gun logo, and I will drag and drop that on there. Now you can log in with Google or Dropbox and do magic with that, but obviously you may choose with these kinds of services that you don't want them to have access to your Dropbox. So it's uploaded it. I then need to choose what I want to save it as. So PDF is the default with this one. But as you scroll down here, there's a whole range of them. So we'll go for SVG with this one as well. It is an option. So there's SVG, and hit convert on that one. So as I say, they take a different length of time. These files are not complicated files. They're like logo files. So that one's ready as well. And you can log in and save it to a cloud service, but I'm just going to download it. So we'll download it to that one. Right, at that stage in the downloads folder, we should have both of these. So before I head off to do the third one, because I'm going to have to duplicate one of these, I am going to show you the downloads. So the first one is this SVG here. I will hold that and you'll see that's the preview, but we would want to see what that looked like in our editor. So if I right click on that and say open with Designer 2 and head off to that, and then we'll see what kind of level of fidelity we've got with the original, if I can remember that far back. Oh, you're taking your time. What's the matter with you? There we go. Right, so how good is it? Not bad. I do not remember, it's a long time ago, forgive me. I don't remember if these were editable or whatever. I think they would be curves. Judging by this, they're curves. I don't know if I named them. I have no idea. We can see the birds here and they're all just saying path. So you would probably need to do some work in terms of naming and things, or maybe just redesigning the whole thing, but you get the idea. It was a demo file, what can I say? But at least it's come through as editable. So if I did want to recolour my umbrellas, let's get a green umbrella, and that's a bad colour. Let's make it much brighter. There we go. So it does work in terms of it's now an editable file, even though not only did it start life in CorelDRAW, it's never been out of CorelDRAW. I've no idea why I've got this border around it. I wouldn't have had the border around it in CorelDRAW. But I could work with that if necessary to do something with it. I could work with it. So that one's not bad at all. Let's get rid of that one. Don't need to save it. And the next one was the Top Gun logo. So again, it's an SVG. I'm going to open that with Designer 2. And that one's not bad either. I could definitely work with that. One thing I noticed when I ran this through it, let's see if it's the same with this one. Right. I've got lots of groups, and some of them are grouped and grouped and grouped for seemingly no reason. I don't know what went on there either, because I can't look at the original in CorelDRAW and see whether this has replicated exactly what was in CorelDRAW or whether it's done its own thing. And there's just groups inside groups inside groups, like that one saying it's a curve. And that curve is just this tiny bit in the middle. So I have no idea what's going on with that. But everything is in here. So I'd have to find, like say I'm looking for this star bit. Right, this group here contains this whole logo at the top. And yeah, it's not bad. I could use it like that. But let's go find and see what's in there. So that's saying curves. So the whole of that is curves. So if I wanted to recolour it or something, I'm going to have a problem. But what you could do is you could work some magic with Boolean ops and reverse engineer that to editable. So what I mean is that is curves. It's one layer of curves. If I toggle that off, that bit there, that's all you've got. These will be somewhere else. So we have these here. These will be somewhere else. If I go into there, we've got a group of those. And again, they are curves. They're not individual. So if I wanted to apply, 3 different colours, then I would potentially have problems with that. But because they're curves, you could get an editable version of that. And it's actually not that difficult. I would draw over the top of it just a box like that. Everything here is contained with that curve there and this one in here. So if I just take everything in there and there and that, hopefully I've got the whole lot. I'm not actually sure if I have though. Let's have a look. Oh, this is a pain. Maybe it might work if I did it step by step. My plan was not to do it step by step. My plan was, let's do this in one go. So there's 2 of the bits I need. And there's the 3rd. Right. I also need the rectangle at the back. So with the 3 pieces and that square at the back selected, if I go up here, this shows you the Boolean ops. This is where you can add, you can subtract, but you can also use this one at the end, which is divide. Now, you can do magic with the new version, with the Pathfinder and stuff. With this, it would just be easier to divide it. So if I just divide it, what we get is pieces of a logo that we can now edit. So if you look here, it's expanded it. So I've got multiple pieces. Some pieces I'm not going to need. So that little piece underneath there, not going to need that. So I can get rid of some of these pieces. All of this stuff is just filler. Don't think we're going to need any of those. Nor that either, I don't think. But now, if you look in here, we've got 3 curves that are separate, whereas before those were in a group. So now we can colour those in any way we want. So even though you've started with your CorelDRAW file, you've managed to create an SVG with it, but you can continue working with that SVG and basically reverse engineer yourself a logo without having to redraw it. So they work quite well. They were the first 2. So we'll close that. No, we don't need to save that. And we'll go do the last one. So in here, I'm going to put those, because I don't know what it's going to call it. So I will put them just in a new folder. So this is the second one. Let's go get the third one, which is CDR converter. So this was the third one that I tried. And as I say, all these are completely free. So it wants me to choose a file. Go and get a file. So we'll use the top one again, and we will open that. Again, you get the option to convert to, and you get a range of formats. Most of these seem to treat a PDF as a document format, although it could be considered to be, it works fine for images. But I'm going to go for an SVG. And then I get an option to convert. It does say that when you press the convert now button, you are agreeing to their terms. But you'll notice that the email thing is optional. There were many of these where the email was not optional, but in here it's optional. So it starts its conversion. This one I think took the longest, but it was seconds anyway. Now, having said that, it's fairly simple. So we've downloaded that one. It has called it exactly what we had it called when we uploaded it. So this time we'll open it in Designer 2 again, but it is a different file, but it's fairly accurate. With this one, it's got a transparent background, whereas the other one, I think it showed as white. But they all do a reasonably good job, and you can edit from there. So if we open it up and look what we've got, this one is better organised. If we toggle that off, you can see that's the top logo, and that one is the bottom logo. So from an organisational perspective, I don't think all of these are taking what's in that file. They're using that as a starting point, and then they're doing their own thing with it. So if we open these up, these are actually easier to work with. So you might want to go with that last one. But Mike's going to put them in, aren't you?
Mike's put them in.
Mike's put them in. Excellent. So there you go. That is how you work with older files. So does anybody have any questions about that while I go and find some other files to amuse you with?
No questions.
No questions. Okay, I'm going to close this down because obviously as I head off looking for my files from 1997, not even joking, I found some stuff. This is funny. So these were the CDR files I found, and this was what I converted to SVG. But I also found, I think I only trained CorelDRAW 2 or 3 times, but it was version 7. And I know that because I wrote a book. In fact, I wrote 2. So in the manuals, I had an introduction to CorelDRAW manual, and I had an exercises manual. And I remember at the time, Word was being very grumpy. I was writing this in Word. So I thought I'd give you a laugh and show you a partially finished manual from 1997 for CorelDRAW. Not even joking. This is genuine. It looks like it was half finished. Yeah, and Word looks like it's half going to open it. Come on, you know you can. One interesting thing about this, yes, Word is thinking about it, was the fact that Mike said, did it open it? And I said, what do you mean? And he was talking about Word. Did Word open it? As you can see, yeah, it did. It's fine. The reason that this has a dark background is I had VBA or probably Word Basic at the time, and it was all automated. I put in a title for it and it generated all of this. Look, 1997. It generated the legalese, it generated the ISBN number for it, and then I started working. Oh, wordy wrapping hood much. There was a lot of words. A lot. There'd be far more graphics in it now. I mean, there were graphics. You can see they've got figures, numbers underneath them, so I had that to deal with. Oh, look at this. Now, obviously, this was fine when I wrote it, but you'll notice now some of this is on the next page. That was a fault with Word, and I got in touch with Microsoft, and they did fix it in the end. But yes, this goes all the way back to 1997, and what I used to do. Oh, I haven't got the patience now. I even left notes to myself. But Mike said he had some .doc files rather than .docx files, and they wouldn't open. And I said, well, I didn't do anything clever with this one. I literally just saved it, and that was it. When I came to this page, I thought, that looks familiar. This is the CorelDRAW scrapbook, which was a feature way back in 97. When I look at this, I think scrapbook. And it says it's a roll-up that can be used as a base from which to manage the addition of images. Doesn't it sound like assets, the assets panel? And you look at it, and yeah, it's a prehistoric assets panel, that. And I even went through these and had character styles for underlining them. Do you remember? You used to have a character for the shortcut key. I haven't written that in 20 odd years. It came as a complete surprise, but there it is. So that was that one, and the other one was a workbook, and again I think that opened first time. So Mike's now grumpy that his old documents, that obviously he was opening for a reason, or attempting to open for a reason, weren't opening at all. Mine did get there in the end. They're not exactly quick, but it did get there in the end. So this was what an exercise used to look like. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? You used to give the person you were training the exact things you wanted them to do, and then they had to go through and do them. So it tells them what to do, but not how. Oh, I've been training that long, it's frightening. So I thought I'd just show you that. All have a good laugh. Right, so I hope that helped, Carol. There are 3 options that are completely free.
Carol says thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
Mrs. Yarnell said I used to really like freehand.
Oh, freehand was fabulous. I loved that as well. Right, making magic with your clipboard. We have covered clipboard extenders before, but we've never covered this one. And I'm covering it now on its own for a reason that will become apparent shortly. But as a standalone app, it's a handy one to have available. So the app in question comes from the same company that make the app I use as my clipboard extender. But it is a clipboard extender, but it's a very special clipboard extender. It's not a generic one. This one only works as a clipboard extender when you enable it. So if you don't want to enable it, if you don't want things copied to your clipboard, then this one you would enable and then disable when you don't want it. For me, I'd rather have the thing on all the time, because I'm likely to forget. Plus the fact I don't really want to have to go through the interface to choose a thing. I want my clipboard extender to just be working in the background. Just for full disclosure, I have 2 clipboard extenders running permanently. So one is called Copy-M, which is 2 words, copy, M. And the other is Alfred. Alfred works as a clipboard extender. So why do I have 2? Just in case one takes a moment with itself, which has happened. So it's really a backup as far as I'm concerned. I don't use Alfred unless something has happened to my primary one. But Alfred does back it up, and I have it set to keep it for 3 months, I think. So I have 3 months of clipboard stuff in Alfred. Which is why what I'm about to do isn't actually catastrophic. So let's go and have a look at this. That's not what we're doing. This is what we're doing. Right, so what I've got in here is, let me get back to the root and paste queue. Right, paste queue is actually running, but it doesn't look like it's running. My clipboard extender is running, and all of these apps, the trick with them is that they might be running, but they're all faceless. So you have to know shortcut keys, or you have to know how to get to them. So the way I have it with my clipboard extender is no matter which one I'm using, I map the same key to it. So at the moment, my clipboard extender is running there. Oh, that's good. It's opened on a different screen. Right, let's have a look at it. Can we use that? I think we can. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see it on the right screen, but this is my clipboard extender. So it would normally open there. And there's all the things that I've been copying. And I would work with it from there. I would just choose one of these things and then paste it in somewhere. So literally that comes up with a shortcut key. It goes away with a shortcut key. And it's running in the background. But paste queue is different. So I'm going to open a text file. There's our text file. So it's just some information of mine. And I will move it out of the way. We'll use you later. So where you go and you. Right, so I'm going to put that over here. This is the data that I want copied. Now, if I copy it, it will copy it to the clipboard. So if I just select and copy, it will copy that to the clipboard. If we look at the top of it, there it is. So what does paste queue do that's different? Well, let's bring up paste queue, which is a slightly different shortcut key. This will sit here until I close it. And the difference is, as I copy stuff, you can see it appearing. So I'm going to copy all of this over to that. And I might even copy some of it twice. So copying that, and now it's all in there. The difference between that and a standard clipboard extender is with a standard clipboard extender, if you paste, you'll paste in the last item. If you want to paste anything else, you bring up the interface and you click it, and that is what it will paste. So to see that in action, we go down to here, bring up standard clipboard extender and put in my blog. I click on that and it pastes that in. I choose what to paste and the order in which to paste it. But with paste queue, you can choose what to paste in and the order that you paste it in. You can also treat all of these. You can see what's happening as I'm moving over it. I've got a cross over on the right hand side. That will remove that item from the paste queue. Or I can drag it around in the paste queue. So I can reorder my clipboard history. There is a reason for this. But before we go any further with what it can do, let's have a look how I've got it configured. So in here, there's two groups of preferences that you're going to be able to set. So the first one in here is your general settings. And there is an option here to download a helper app. It has to be a helper app because this is sold via the App Store, and the App Store cannot allow you to do certain things without a helper app, and they won't let them put two apps together in a bundle in that way. So it's already installed because paste queue comes from the same developer as Copy'em, and it uses the same thing. So that's the first thing to think about. So I've already got that installed. I didn't have to install it for this app, but if I hadn't got it installed, I'd just need to click that. It would go and download it. I would then install it and we're done. Then you get the options to play sound effects when you're pasting or copying. I can't be doing that. I cannot be doing with noises. You then have the option to reject duplicated clips if you want to. I haven't enabled that either. Then you can paste rich text as plain text if you want. I haven't enabled that either. I use Ulysses to convert between things. So I would do the rich text thing via Ulysses. Right, then we come on to this one, which is when pasting multiple clippings together, how do you want to separate them? So you have two options in here. You've got Enter or you've got Tab. So the default is Enter. So I'm going to leave that like that. It's telling you that here. Then you've got the user interface. Do you want to close the queue window when you've pasted everything? Normally I'd say yes to that, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to say no. And then you can choose to have this running on login, which I think I have, because I may use this for certain things, as you will see. So that's the general settings, and then you've got the shortcuts. There's a whole range of shortcuts. I only use 3. I try and keep this simple. So I want the top one to be as close to my other shortcut as possible without getting confused with it. So if I want to open or close this paste queue, it is Control Shift and C. So as you can see, because it's active, it doesn't like that. Let's put that back in, right? That's the shortcut key. So if I close that and use the shortcut key, it brings that back. The other ones that I have in here, I only have 2 others. Paste the next item in the queue, and obviously V is paste. So if Command and V is paste, I use this with, and you'll notice the shortcuts, the modifiers are the same. So it's Control and Shift, Control and Shift, Control and Shift. And that way I only have to remember Control and Shift. And then I know that to open it is C, because I want to see it. To paste is V. And this one is to paste all the clippings in the queue. There are other shortcuts that you could have. So you could remove them all from the queue. You could paste the last one. You could cut and record. I don't want to know about that. If I want to do that, I'm going to do it some other way. I only want, I'm very careful with how many shortcut keys I have, because if there's too many to remember, I'm not going to use it. So there's only 3. Right, that's it. That's it for the preferences. So we do have this loaded up here. And you've already seen that if I click on one of these, it will paste it into whatever is the active window. But of course, the power of this is working with them as a batch. So I have a file that I have created for data entry. So I'm going to open that up now. I know some of you are watching the match. It's next to me as well. Right, data entry. So you'll notice here that it's first name, last name, website, and it matches up to how I've copied it. If it hadn't, so if Facebook and LinkedIn were the other way round, I'd just move them around. That's why you can move things in the paste queue. Obviously, you can paste in one item. So with B1 active, first name, if I do that, it's going to paste it in. And obviously, I can move down and I can just paste and paste and paste and paste. But there was a shortcut key, wasn't there? And that was Control Shift and Z for me. And that said it would paste everything. And indeed it has. But you even actually saw it do it. And that was why in the preferences there was an option to say what the shortcut, well, what the key was between pastes. So if we go back in and have a look at that in the preferences, in the general, when pasting multiple clippings together, separate them with, and you had 2 options. You had the enter and you had the tab. Obviously, if you're working downwards, it's enter. But if we go back in there and change that to tab, and then come out of this, not 2 tabs, 1 tab, right. Now, at this point, I need to go back in and I need to do my copying again. So I'm going to go in here and copy all of these elements again. Most of this time is just me copying stuff, isn't it? Obviously, if this was a video, I would speed it up. But it's not, it's live. Right, so I've got everything in the right order. Right, in here, I'm going to horizontal. This time, this is far more like a form that you would be filling in, where you're filling it in across. And because I changed that shortcut, that key between them, from enter to tab, technically speaking, if I select the first cell, which I have, and I use my shortcut key, it will go across. It's genius. Obviously, you need a reason to use this. It's a niche thing, I'll grant you. But when you've seen what I'm going to do with it later in a separate demo, you may think, oh, I'm going to need that. Do some of these players need to go to Specsavers at all? Let's just say the penalties aren't all going in. Right, so that is paste queue. That's how I use it. But linked in with other applications where you find yourself needing to copy and needing to paste, maybe with something happening in between, it's a really, really useful app. Have you put the link in, Mike? It's $6.99 from the App Store. As I say, it is niche, but hold that thought. I'm going to be returning to this with another demo down the line. And when I do, you may decide that you need it. So I'm not going to need to save that. We don't need to save the data. Let's come out to there. And PasteQ will now happily sit in the background until we next need it. Right, we've got any questions about that?
There was one question.
Right.
From Carol. Have you tried Raycast? She discovered it this week.
Raycast is very similar to Alfred. I've had a look at it. It's got some great integrations. I've just got lots of workflows in Alfred. I guess I could install it and have it running alongside, but shiny object syndrome. No, I was blinded this week, to be honest, by the Obsidian canvases. Couldn't get beyond the Obsidian canvases. I could certainly have a look at it at some point. One of the things that Raycast did, it had some, somebody had written some scripts to integrate it with one of the apps that we've already looked at, which was, we looked at it last week. It was Colour Slurp. So Raycast integrates with Colour Slurp. So from that perspective, that would be a good one. Oh dear, poor Renee. Have a freebie and cheer yourself up. Right, there's lots of freebies in our MacBites Advent calendar, but I have still managed to secure more for tonight. So I have gone for cloud textures, because when you put in skies on stuff, you know, it makes it look much more realistic, particularly if you're based in the UK, to be honest, if you've got some clouds. So these are cloud textures. They're all isolated on a transparent background. There is 100 of them, and they do look very realistic. So Michael put the link in, and that's the QR code if you want to go get them as well. They are free at the moment, but I don't know for how long they'll be free. So you've been warned. They may be free for a couple of days. They may be free for longer. But get them as soon as if you are interested in that. And as it says there, they are 4K as well. So we're talking very, very high quality. Right. Oh, the chaining of the styles. This was a question last week from T. Andrew Caddick. Specifically about creating a conversation. So in a book, there's actually a couple of books I've read lately that have done exactly this. They've put like long text chat conversations in the book. So we're talking making up something like that, but doing it in Affinity Publisher. Now, obviously, that's a mock-up down the line. We'll wrap up with that. But yes, making that in Affinity Publisher. And there are 3 different options for that. We're going to look at all 3. So let's head off and look at that. This one might be interesting because I think you can use this technique for a lot of different options. So, first of all, I will get into Publisher. Did I leave it running? No, I didn't. It's getting upset with itself. Come on. You can do it. Or not. It's been very grumpy tonight. Okay, so I don't really need tables at the moment, do I? So let's get rid of the tables. Right, I'm just going to get a new document, which has opened on the wrong screen. There we go. You see, this was something I mentioned in a previous demo. I've always had this set to print, and I always choose A4. And it says, no, it's letter. It's not letter. You just think it is. It's not. But never mind. Right, I will put on here, we don't need facing pages, and pretty much one page will do. Right, because all we're going to do, all you need to see this in action is some text. So let's say we put a text frame on there. Now, over in the text styles, I have something enabled, and I always say this at the beginning because this is not the default. But in you can choose to show hierarchical, and I do, because it makes total sense. If I don't have that showing, it's like alphabetical or whatever, it's illogical. I can't tell visually what's based on what. But if I turn it off just to show you, that's what I get. It's just an alphabetical list. Turn this on, and I can see I have a base style, and that the body is based on base, and the box and drop cap are based on body, which in turn is based on base. So that gives me information that's useful to me. Your mileage may vary, but that's how I've got it set up. Right, so in here, let's say what I want to do is type in some questions and answers. So literally just put a Q, and this is a question. And then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to put a colon, this is the answer. I'm sure I've spelt that wrong. Yes, there's that. No, you don't spell it like that. Right, this is the answer. And I would just carry on doing that. Right. It makes no sense to do that and then go back and format it later. So I'll leave that on there so I've got something to see in terms of how I want this to look. So this being a question. Right. How I would do it is the first thing I would create, the first style I would create is a group style. There are 3 different types of styles in Affinity Publisher. So they are all down here. We have the P, which is a paragraph style. We have the A, which is character style. And we have the S, which is a group style. I don't know why that's not a G either. But I'm going to create a group style. So we also can see the type in here, paragraph, character and group. This is a group style. So at the bottom it says no changes, which means it's depending on what I base this style on, whether it would have any format whatsoever. Now, should I base this style on some other styles? Now, this is the first question you need to think about. If you want to have the ability to change the font in the entire document by making one change, then yes, you need to base this style on something. It could be the body style, or it could be the base style. It's totally up to you which one you base it on. For this, it wouldn't make that much difference. So how do you choose? Well, if you want to take this style and put it in another document, basing it on the base style makes it a little bit more independent than basing it on the body style. But if you're only ever going to want to use this in here and you want the ability to change certain elements, so maybe make all the text bold in anything to do with the body, but not the headings, then you could base it on body. It really is up to you. For demonstration purposes, I'll base it on body. Right, that changes the bottom. It now says body and no changes. So that will do for this, but I do need to give it a name. And this is going to be questions and answers. So I'll call it Q&A. And OK. At that stage, I'll open up body, and you can see at the top I have Q&A. That's my style. You don't really tend to apply group styles. You tend to use the group styles to put other styles inside. So I need 2 more styles, one for the question and one for the answer. And there's a few ways that you can do that. So let's do the right click on the group, and can we create a new style? Create a new style based on Q&A. That saves us one extra job. If we'd just said new style, we'd have to go and choose Q&A to base it on. So it's a little bit faster, a couple of seconds faster to say create a style based on Q&A. But it does something that I consider to be a bit weird, which is it says, there's your style. So what's your style going to be called? Well, it would be Q&A question, which again, you don't spell like that. It's based on Q&A, so far so good. But why would it default to a group style? I want this to be a paragraph style. So I then have to go and make sure that this is a paragraph style. That's as far as I can go at this moment with that. Obviously, I'm going to format it, but I'm just making the styles at this stage. So there's my question style. And now the Q&A group unfurls and I can see my question style. I need another one, which is the answer style. So this time I'm going to right click on the question style and say duplicate it, which means I can go in there and just change that to answer and not need to worry about anything else. It's based on Q&A, that's correct, and it's a paragraph style, and OK. But before I do that, these styles, to make it easy for myself, if we look at the kind of data I'll be working with, this is a question and this is the answer. and then it'll be this is a question, this is the answer, all the way down here. So let's create that right now, just so we've got, in fact, no, we'll work with one. Right, so the one I was just in was answer. But when I press enter, I'm going to enter another question. So this option, next style, is fantastic. By default, it will apply the same style. So when I press enter, it will apply the answer style again. But we know that the next paragraph is going to be a question. So choose from in here the question style, which is there. Why didn't I do that when I created the question style? Because the answer style didn't exist. So I couldn't do that. But now it does. And so I can OK on that one and then go back to, did I create the answer first? No, I didn't. Other way around. So let's go back to the question. And this time it's going to apply the question style, same style. But we don't want that. We want the answer one. So when we come out of a question, we want it to be styled as an answer. And when we come out of an answer, we want it styled as a question. So it's a chain of styles, but because there's only two of them, it's going to flip-flop from one to the other. You could chain together as many styles as you like. So if you were working on something strange and you went from style 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 back to 1, you could chain 5 styles together. Doesn't matter. But in this one, it's going from style 1 to 2 to 1 to 2, 1 to 2. And OK, that's the mechanics of it done. But obviously nothing has changed up here. I know, because we haven't actually applied it yet. So if we come in here and apply the question style and go in there and apply the answer style, why are you not selecting? Interesting. I'll apply the answer anyway. Now that's bizarre. I have no idea why that's happening. Let's put that back in. No, right, just stay there. Don't do anything silly. Right, it's applied. It's still not made any changes, but that's because we haven't formatted the styles. So let's start with the question. Let's edit the style. It would make sense to me to have it a different colour. So the question could be red. So let's go choose one of these. We have red available in there. You could also change the font. You could change the weight. But I would have to question, is that something you want to do in here? Because if you change the font in here, you will have to change it in the question as well. The benefit of putting these two styles in a group is that if you want to change the font, change it at the group level. Or maybe even higher. But we can see that there is a difference. This one is red. We'll go into the answer style and edit that. And this time, and the reason that the text is disappearing is because the text fill is set to transparent at this stage. But we want this set to green, but that's a bit vile, isn't it? So let's make that a darker, more muted green, like that. Okay. Working well so far. So I want to change the font. But do I want to change the font at an individual level? So the question is in one font and the answer's in another. Do I want to change the entire body style, or do I want to change the base style? You would change it at base level if you want to change it for the entire document. You would change it at body style if you wanted just the body elements to be that font. In this circumstance, what I would do is just show you that if we change the base style, this is where in the font the Arial is coming from. If we wanted to change that, should we make it something? Yeah, Poppins. Poppins is nice. There we go. That has changed them both. If I want the question, and only the question, to be bold, then I would go into that particular style. I would edit that. And in the font weight in there, where it says no change, I would make that semi-bold or bold, like that. Awesome. So, we've done stuff. I personally would probably do one more thing with this. But first of all, I'll show it you working. So I am in here. The style I have applied, which is shown up there, is the Q&A answer style. When I press enter, it automatically changes to Q&A question. And then I can put my question tag at the beginning, and this is another question. Press enter, it automatically changes to answer. I can put my little tag in for that, and this is another answer. And you just keep doing that. So you create the style at the beginning, and I know that takes time, but when you've done it and you start typing in your content, if you are typing your content in directly to Affinity Publisher, that's by far the fastest way to do it. It also stops any errors because it's automatic. You go from the question to the answer to the question to the answer. It's automatic. The one thing I would probably do with something like that, and it's just nice to see it, I probably wouldn't have it that wide. And one thing I might be tempted to do is to edit the answer. And in here, where we have alignment, no change, I may be tempted to align that over there. I have no idea what's going on down here. We have weirdness going on down here. But it would alternate it side to side. That should remind you of that image that we started with the text conversation, because that's what started this entire demo. But that is what I have got done in there. That is the first option. It is not the only option. It's the first option. When should you use that? You should use that when you're typing the content straight into Publisher. But what if the content already exists? Then you can't do that. It's as simple as that. You would have to bring text in. So, I thought I had some of that. Clearly I didn't. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another page in here. We'll use the same styles as we've got because you've already seen it once. So we have another page. I am going to need another text frame on it. And I have got weirdness going on there. Why have I got weirdness going on? I have absolutely no idea. It wasn't doing it in rehearsals, let's put it like that. But I've got a text frame. So let's say I've got some bullet points to put in here or whatever. I'm wondering, do I actually have here some text? No. So what I'll do is I will go to this one. I'll take these two and we'll use that. But this time I'm going to need multiples of this. So I'm going to a text file. When somebody has written text for me and they then want that laying out, then I will get text that looks something like that. And it will be in a text file. It may be marked up. It may have headings in there. It will probably be written in Markdown. And I will get something that looks like that. And I need to put that in this document in here and have it formatted, preferably automatically. There's the problem. So how do I do that? Well, the first thing to think about is in here with how am I getting this from here? Now, obviously this is the same, but I could put here, this is question 2 and that is question 3. Obviously it would be different. So there's my text. Well, that's where the second method uses paste queue. So bring paste queue up and start copying and pasting. So copy the first one and so forth. You literally just copy those down. I will take the first 4 or we'll be here all day. Right, so there's question 4 and there is the answer. So I've loaded that into paste queue. How does this make this any faster? Because obviously I could have copied and pasted the whole thing straight into Affinity Publisher. But I want to use the power of this and the power of Affinity Publisher together. So if I click on this is a question, it will put that text in here. It isn't formatted at this stage. If we look down here, you can see it's got no style under no style. I'm seeing a question from Dale. Hang on with that question, Dale. It may answer itself very shortly. So at the moment, this has got no style applied. Obviously, it's a question. So I want to apply that as a question. And then I'm going to press enter. And we know what happens when I press enter. It automatically changes to an answer style. And I have a shortcut key to paste. So I paste. Enter. And paste. Enter. Paste. Enter. Paste. Just keep doing that. And the questions goes in and the answers go in. And the fact that those styles are linked together means it's worth your while copying everything separately, because when you get to the Affinity Publisher end, you just paste, enter, paste, enter, paste, enter. And it automatically formats it, which again is fantastic. Right, that's the second way of doing it. But if you were to come onto something like the text one, you would potentially have issues. This is where Dale's question might be answered with this. If not, we'll address it. So for this one, we don't need the paste queue. This is something entirely different. So I do believe I had a starting point for this one, which is there. Right. And there is a reason that there is a starting point. So what I'm going to do with that is, that's the file that I need it to go into. I have the messages themselves. So I'm going to open that up in a text editor. There are the messages. So there's 10 messages. You can see I needed to know which ones were from me and which ones were from Mike. Because obviously, getting them in here, they need to be lined up. Just in case you've totally forgotten what we were aiming for, let's go back in and have a look what we were aiming for, which was this from Publisher. I know, that's tough, isn't it? But clearly it was doable. Right, so that's what we're aiming for. How do we do that? Well, first thing is to get the text. This time I can just take it as an entire block. And it says text goes here. Okay, so I'm going to replace the placeholder text with the text I'll be working with. And there's the text I'm working with. I even have already some layers in here. And one of them is the bubbles. Who wants to line the text up with that manually? No. So, there is a way to do this, right? There is luckily a way to do this. So let's have a look what we've got in here. And I'm looking for them. There they are. Right, so what can you do to do this in the fastest way? You do not want to be sitting there making styles. You do not want to be sitting there moving things around manually. And you need everything to line up automatically with the bubbles. Oh, that'd be grand, wouldn't it? Right, that's what we can do. Zoom in, so we're just focusing on that. You need, first of all, to examine what information you've got. And you can see in here that I know which ones are mine and I know which ones are Mike's. So the format of my text is already including that information. My messages should be on these blue bubbles and Mike's messages should be on the grey bubbles. That's what should happen. And if you've ever looked at your messages, you don't have a name at the front of them. That is there for a reason. So, wouldn't it be great if I could just copy and paste the styles? Yes, but it would take time. And this conversation could go on for pages. So, copy and paste is okay, but doing it automatically would be even better. But you would need to know the secrets of the find and replace dialog box to be able to do it in the best way. So, the find and replace dialog box. Right, in here, you need something to find. So I have a hook at the beginning of every line. I've got my initials or I've got Mike's initials. So let's start with mine. So e.g. : space. I want it to find that and I want to replace it with what? Well, nothing for a start, but I also need it to format it as well. So I don't really just want to find that text and say that's done. I want it to find that text, replace it with nothing, and then apply a style. So my find is okay. In the replace with, there are two places that you can go. In addition to typing in some text, so I could replace EG with Elaine. That would be simple enough. But I actually need to replace it with nothing. So from this drop down that's in here, we have special characters. And one of the special characters is a 0 width space, which you can see I've used before. ZWSP is a 0 width space. So I want it to replace it with that. But while it's at it, I would also, from the cog, like it to apply a paragraph style. And it's my messages, so they are outgoing. So format it as outgoing. Now, for this to work, obviously, you need the styles there already. You need to understand the find and replace dialog box, and you need to have a hook to hook into. So the initials at the beginning of the hook. Then you click the find button, and it should find 5 messages, which it has. These are my 5 messages. And then all I need to do is hit replace. I know they're not lined up yet, but boy, they're in the right place. So the next thing I need to do is just change mics. So put MT in there. I do need it to replace with a 0 width space. And in the styles, I need it to replace with an incoming message. Do the find, it finds 5 messages. I can instantly see that they're correct because they've got the MT at the beginning. And then all I need to do is replace all. And that gives us that. Now, that's the fast way of doing it when you have worked through it once. Just to show you how it's actually working, I had some text styles in here. They are not part of the body. This time it's messages down here. So if I fold up the base, you can see the messages are here. There is a group, and then within that there are 2 styles, incoming and outgoing. These are slightly different than the other styles we looked at, but only in terms of they've added some spacing. Because these are rounded at the edges, they need to be bumped inwards. And the same with these. So the ones on the grey bubbles need to be bumped in from the left, and the ones on the right need to be bumped in from the right. But can anybody just look at that and see what a potential problem would be with that? Because bumping it in from the left with the black text, no problem whatsoever. Bumping it in from the right with the white text, no problem whatsoever. But where would the problem come with that? I would ask Mike, but he'd have no clue whatsoever. So whatever he's doing, I'm just leaving him playing with it. There would be an issue with that. Let's go back and look at the text we've got, and maybe that would give you an idea of what would be wrong with it. So if we look at these 2 messages from Mike, I have no idea when are you back, and I'll open the gates for you. Those messages are long, but they're not going straight across here. Neither of them. They are reaching a point in this text frame, and they are wrapping. Let's have a look how we do that. Oh, Renee says multiple lines. No, they're not multiple lines. No. We don't want to do that because we wouldn't be able to predict. You'd have to do the text that you want there manually, and you don't want to do that. And your clients certainly aren't going to do that. So you need a clever way to make it break. So let's start with the incoming messages. So these are the ones from Mike, and we'll go to edit. And in here, this is where we've got all the stuff. So from the top, you can see it's based on messages, which puts it in a group. The next style is the same one because we're not doing this manually. So this doesn't matter. You can put anything you like in there. It's not going to happen because you are doing it automatically based on a find and replace. So it doesn't matter. The font is where you would change the colours, etc. So the font face. But if you look in here, this one isn't changing at all. But obviously, this one is. But if you keep going down, you have options for spacing in here. So in here, you can see I've got a left indent of 6. That's what's pushing this past the bend on the corner. But I have this one, which is the right indent, at 54 millimetres. 54 millimetres from this side is 4 millimetres over halfway. because the width of the frame is 100, and that forces it back into the next line. So that one is 6 from the left and 54 from the right. If we go into the outgoing, which are mine, and see what changes we needed in there, you can see the left indent is 54 and the right indent is 6. So I've just flipped them round. So I'm treating this single text box as if it was in 2 halves. The right-hand half is for my messages and the left-hand half is for Mike's. And by putting in an indent, a huge indent of 54, that makes sure that if this is too long, it wraps round. The other thing in here that I did in the colour and decorations, the text fill of this is white. Because if you check your iPhone, that's exactly what it looks like. It's white text on the blue and black text on the grey. And that is how I replicated that. Now, I am not going to fool you that is perfect. It's not. But it's pretty slick and it's pretty fast. Obviously, these boxes, which I think I've locked, so let's go and unlock the boxes and toggle this off, right? This one only says, thank you very much. So that one would probably be smaller to accommodate that. Maybe even smaller still. As would this one. So I'd need to get rid of that or click on the bubble. Which bubble are you? You are bubble 4, right? And bring that one in. But in terms of the question that was asked by T. Andrew Caddick, that's how you would format it. But yes, you know, you cannot with the bubbles. What if there's 3 lines? Don't write so much in a text. So you would have to have some alternatives available, but the principle would stay the same. And that principle could be applied for questions and answers or anything else where there's anything that's alternating. So the trick is to have a hook in terms of the initials, but then you've got that trick over here when you come to replace it, that you replace the hook with a 0 with space, so there's nothing there. There is a placeholder for a 0 with space where there used to be initials. And it can be used on any kind of data that would make sense to do that with. So if you haven't got anything else to replace, put a hook in and replace that with, in essence, nothing. And apply the style as part of the find and replace, and that is what you can achieve. Now, if you want that in a book like that, so I have seen, like, they're usually like drama type books where people are having a text conversation, then that would work as is. You could maybe push it to one side and have something on either side of it or whatever. But maybe you want one of your text conversations to be on the front of the book. Oh, so how would that work? Right, what I'm going to do with this is save it before we lose it. I do not want to lose that. Right, I would make that a PDF. So if we just look at that page, it's an A4 page with some, it's not a graphic, there are shapes in it, there's text in it, but it's not in any way perfect to use in a mock-up. But let's export it. So I'm going to take it out as a PDF. Now, if you look at that, it's transparent. That doesn't really matter. If you don't want it transparent, you can fix that, but it doesn't matter. I just want good quality, so we'll be able to read it when we get it to where we need it to be. So I'm going to export that. Don't know where it'll offer me. Oh, the desktop. Okay, we'll stick it in there. Right, that is that document dealt with. Right, I also have here, let me have a look what I've got. I've got a starting point file, which is, I'm going to open it up in Photoshop. It doesn't matter. You could do it in Photo. It really doesn't matter. But I did it in Photoshop, so might as well stick with it. Unless Photoshop doesn't want to open, which it isn't even making an effort. That's good of it. Not. Come on. Right. So with this part, it doesn't matter what you use for it. I might try it in Photo when we're finally done in here. But this was stock. It came from Envato Elements, I think, and it was just a standard thing for an iPhone 14. And I thought, well, that's great. What's this thing? I don't need that. Anyway, I did manage in here to get rid of some stuff. So there's 2 placeholders. One is for the entire face of the phone, which is somewhere down here. It's in the scene, I do believe. Right. Is it that one? No, it's not. Where have you disappeared? I swear you could turn that off. Oh, here you go. Here's your smart object. So there's 2 smart objects. You define them at the top, and then they're placed there. So that one I don't want, so I just turned it off. That's the only change I needed to make down there. The next one was, which one of these is it? I think it's that one. So I double click that. And what I did was I took a screenshot. So you see this says blank messages background. There you go. I just took a screenshot of my conversation with Mike. You can see we've been really busy. So that's just a screenshot. But I needed the screenshot as the background. So I dragged and dropped the screenshot in there. And then scaled it to the right size. And it does scale properly. It just makes a bit of a drama about doing it. There we go. And then enter to accept that. So that's the background. I don't need this grid, but the grid can either sit behind that or I can turn it off. It doesn't matter. But obviously I do need the messages, and the messages were on the desktop. So that is the PDF on my desktop. And if I were to look at it, you can see that that in no way is scaled correctly for this. But we'll just drag and drop it inwards. And it realises that it has pages. It knows it's a PDF. And oh, when I did this the first time, I actually had 3 demo pages in it. So I had to pick the page. But obviously, I've just got 1 in here. So obviously, it's that page that I need. And click OK. You can see it automatically loses all the detritus around it. It knows that that's the business bit that's got content. So from there, I can just scale that however big I would like it in that window. So I think I could probably go full width with it, like that. And then scoot it up so I can see that Mike has his notifications silenced, but leave a fraction of a gap at the top of it and press OK. That has put that in the smart object. All I need to do is save the smart object, which it's doing right now, and come out of it. And there is my mock-up. Right. I'm not going to save that because that's Photoshop. Let's see if we can make it work in Affinity Photo. Right, so I've got all the files that I need. And we're going back to the starting point file, which I am going to attempt to do this. This is like a magician, isn't it? I'm going to attempt to do it in Affinity Photo 2. For this to work at all, you need to change one of the default options in Affinity Photo. You may have done that in Affinity Photo 1, but did you do it in Affinity Photo 2? So in the preferences in here, we have the number 1 option. I have no idea why it sets this the way it does. Let me try and find it. This one here, it is the 5th one down. It is that one. Import PSD smart objects where possible. Why would you ever disable it? I don't know. But I made sure when I installed version 2 that I put a tick in the box. If you open one of these files, it doesn't look right, go back and make sure you put a tick in the box as well, because putting a tick in that box is very important. Right, that means over here we have this. Now, whether this is going to work or not, I've no idea. Oh, look at this. Place the screen here. Right, but which one? Was it the top one or the bottom one? Oh, there we go. Right, so that's embedded. That's the thing that we need to put our extras in. So I have the PNG there. So let's put that in the right place and scale it. It's actually easier to scale it in Affinity Photo because it snaps. Photoshop wasn't snapping both ways. I don't know why. I don't know. It was snapping in one corner and not the other. Right, don't need the background on it. Do need the messages. Again, these messages, they're on the desktop, aren't they? These messages are a PDF. So we will find out what Photo does with it. Now, Photo's not as kind to us. Let's say that. It's not as kind to us as Photoshop is. Photoshop cropped that down automatically. It doesn't matter because it's transparent. So we can have that hanging off the edge. It won't overwrite anything. We can make this as big as we need to get it correct. It would just be nice if it did, but it doesn't, so leave it alone. One thing you could do with it, all right, is when it's smaller and you can see it on here, you could crop it. And so the crop tool I've got mapped to, no, I haven't, not in here. I'm telling a lie. Right, there's the crop tool, but that's going to crop the whole thing, isn't it? Oh, let's leave it alone. Let's leave it alone and do it the other way, but you could do if you wanted to. Let me have a look. No, we'll just scale it. Proving the point that it was important that it was transparent and get it in the right place. Still need to make it bigger than that. Are we right? That will do nicely. This bit doesn't matter. It's not going to use it anyway, but it's an embedded document, so you need to save it. And then you can close it. And when you return in here, there it is. Now, obviously, in the scene, we haven't got the thing for the back. So was it? No, that's changing the colour of it. It's somewhere in here. It is that one, and we don't want to see it, so we'll just hide it. And that is how you do exactly the same thing in photo. I think it's easier in Photoshop. One, it scales it correctly, and two, you're not fishing around in here thinking which one of these do I need to change. It's just more obvious in Photoshop, but Affinity Photo can do it. There you are. And from there, you would then just export that as is. So if you wanted it in a book, you wouldn't need to do that last bit, which was staging it for an export. But if you wanted one of those on the front cover of a book, and depending on how many of these you're doing, that's why it's worth getting publisher involved. Because you can create the conversations and then just bring them in here and then toggle them on and off and do your exports as needed. So it would be more difficult to try and take the mock-up into publisher, but it's not difficult at all to take the content out of publisher and do that in here. So that was in answer to T. Andrew Caddick's question about text conversations. That was interesting this week, wasn't it, Mike? You've got your microphone turned off, so I'll turn it on. It was interesting, as I was saying, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could do that. And when you've got a question like that, I tried about 5 different ways and it was like, that's not going to work, or that's too long-winded. But when you've got that question in your mind, you will come up with a solution for it. And then at the end, it was like, right, I've got the conversation, but it would make sense to showcase that in a phone mock-up. Obviously, there are a million free mock-ups for phones. It wasn't mock-ups today.
Mock-ups was today.
Yeah. So if you're on the MacBites list, you have got plenty of mock-ups today, and there's something you could put on them. So do we have any questions for that?
We have a few questions.
Right, okay.
Dale says, did you answer Dale's?
I'm not sure if that was precisely Dale's question. So if that answered your question, Dale, or if it didn't, let us know.
Mrs. Arnold says, a little unrelated, do you know a way to select all the text in files where there are images and objects so I can apply a style? Just now in imported documents, I need to select and apply afterwards.
Right. Adobe InDesign is fabulous. Adobe InDesign has that kind of feature where you can say, apply the first style and then apply all the rest after it. And Affinity Publisher does not. So not a fast way, which was why I used the paste queue example. That way I can chain it, but I have to push the content in. Maybe the next version, maybe an update, but not at the moment.
Dale says it did in a way.
Okay, if you want to elaborate on that, in what way it did and what way it didn't, feel free.
In the meanwhile, Richard Hainsworth says, loving this, by the way, brilliant, thanks Elaine. And his question is, what would happen if a message runs over onto another page?
It is a manual process, like I said. It's like the size of the bubbles. It can accommodate 2 lines of text, but if you've got 3, then you're going to have to move things. So it wouldn't, once you've got the principle there, so you can apply this to the text, the rest of it's quite simple. So for instance, the bubbles, if there were more bubbles, I could just place the first one, place the last one, sling however many I need in the middle, and then tell it to lay them out equally. And that would work. But yeah, I mean, if it runs over to another page, then no, it's a manual job. But really, the principle to take from that is that if there's a hook in the text, and that could be done in a text editor. Let me show you this. We'll get a new file in here. This is something that I do with text editors all the time, and it probably drives Mike crazy. But if you look at this, and I wanted to take just the messages, there are shortcut keys for that. So that takes just the messages, it misses the beginning out. So let's say this is text, just random text. And I've got no hook at the beginning, so I can't search and replace and apply a style. But you can. Command and A. So this is Sublime Text. This is magic and witchcraft in Sublime Text. So Command and A to select the lot. Command Shift and L to go into line mode. So you can see at the end of every line, there's now a caret. So I can move through that, right? But what I actually want is to move to the beginning. So Command and A, Command and L, back to the beginning. And it looks like there's an entire bar over there. But let's say I want to add a hook. And that hook I'm going to use to replace with a style. Let's say the hook is just XYZ. XYZ colon space, I'm done. And I can apply that. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 lines. It will just automatically apply like that because I know the shortcut keys. So the principle of the demo to take away is as long as you've got something, anything that's unique that you can hook into, you can then replace that with a zero with space and apply a style at the same time. That was the thing to take away from it. I don't think there's really going to be much of a way that you can accommodate every single eventuality in terms of the length of a message. So it just depends on the content, but that's the idea.
Dale has expanded the question. In the case that the Q&A is already there, could the style generate those two letters alternately for you?
Yes, it could. Because whatever the hook, well, when would the style need to generate those? Because you've just seen me add it in a text editor. So I do that before I get that far. I'm pushing that in via a text editor. I mean, I have been... Obsidian's where my text-based notes are, but quite frequently, I just cut a note from Obsidian, I paste it into a text editor, and I format it in the text editor. Then I cut it and paste it back. Because it's faster for me, because I know the shortcuts to be able to do that. Yes, you can replace certain things with certain something else's, but there has to be something there first in Publisher to be able to hook into. So if you literally have no hooks whatsoever, what are you searching for? You need to have something to search for. I mean, one of the things that I thought about was maybe I could apply the style that I need by replacing another style. And I thought, you're insane. You wouldn't have a style there to replace. So go back to the drawing board with that one. So you have to have something there to replace. But once you have, you can replace it not just with content. So I could have changed EG to Elaine. I could have changed the format of it. I could have deleted it by replacing it with a blank. I don't think I would go into Publisher and then try pushing something in. But as long as you had something to hook into, you could if you wanted to. So hopefully that helps that one.
That is it.
Oh, now Ken says, I see a blue share button in the top right. What was that? What did I miss? Let me know. Right.
It's one of Ken's babies, apparently.
Oh, right. Excellent. Right, my chat's jumping all over. Okay, so we have no more questions about that?
No more questions.
Really, it was just one example of a way that you can work, because, you wouldn't necessarily think to yourself, well, obviously I can search for some text and replace it with nothing and apply a style while I do it. You wouldn't even think of that unless you had a reason for doing it. So obviously the reason for doing it here was T. Andrew Caddick, who'd asked the question. I don't think he's in the chat tonight. Maybe he'll watch on catch up. But that is how I went about it. And that was where the idea came from. It's like, how are you going to make this work? And yes, the bubbles are a bit of a workaround. But to be honest, to place those bubbles isn't that arduous. formatting the text is make a selection, go and find the style. So to be able to automate that part of it, if I had to automate one part of it, I'd rather automate that than the bubbles, which are fairly easy. Another thing you could do if it's text like that is just don't put the bubbles behind it. I took it as a challenge to make it look like an iPhone. But, you know, I've no idea what an Android looks like. So you could just, like, not put the bubbles behind it. How many people... I had to go and open my phone to look at my text to see what colour the bubbles were. How many people would not even remember there were bubbles there? As long as it represents a text, I think you'd get away with it. But like I said, it's not difficult to do. You've got your alignment options to get them in a line. You've got your distribution options to distribute them properly. I only placed the first one on the last one and then spread the others out equally. And that was it. So it's not that difficult. But for for conversations that go on for weeks, that are going to go on multiple pages, then yes, you would have an issue. But, you know, looking at that, one option would be, if I was doing that, to put it on a slide. And I've demonstrated this. Can you find it, Mike? It was when I demonstrated how you could put a scrolling page in a browser. It was a good while ago. And then Jonathan used it in a presentation and got giddy. So what I would do with that is, if the conversation was longer than that, and I wanted to show it in a presentation, when you go into the bit that you're editing, which is, heaven help us, where are we now? Was it you? Right, when you go into here, instead of putting that on the top of it, I would take this and I would cut a bit out. I would literally there put that on top of that image and then get rid of it. Take it out. So can we just do that? Oh, it didn't like that at all, did it? I'd probably mask it then. I'd cut the middle out somehow and then export it. So I'd end up with a PNG which had the top and the bottom and the middle bit transparent. And then in PowerPoint or Keynote, I would take this, which would be longer than I could display. I would put it on a slide, positioned as it is now. I'd duplicate the slide and I'd add a morph transition in PowerPoint or a magic move in Keynote, and that would move up. And that's how I would demonstrate that. So if that was what was needed, that is how I would do it. Okay. Have I got anything there? Oh, Carol says Samsung and Android. Question is blue, and the answer is a teal. No, I don't think I've ever even seen text messages on an Android. I've got an Android tablet, but not a phone. Can you get messages on a tablet? Well, clearly no one's ever sent me one, so the answer to that must be no. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm Androidless. Let's put it like that. But yeah, you know, you could have, I mean, if we're going to go to the nth degree with this, let's go back to Publisher. If you're going to get really, really clever with it, whereas I've got these here as outgoing bubbles in blue, what would you do to accommodate different phones, or if Apple changed their mind? You've got options in here depending on what else is in the file. You have the ability to select by colour. That would be one option. But you've also got options in here. You can see you've got colour palettes, system palettes, Pantone colours. But if you go to the top and say you want to add a global colour, there's my global colour. Let's say this one is my outgoing. So it's the outgoing background. I go and select it in here and click add. That adds it. Oh, that worked well, didn't it? No, that's not what we want at all. What are you thinking? No, it's not undoing either. Good grief. Okay. We will edit the fill. We will do that again. What is it doing? I have no idea. I don't want to do just that. Do you know what? I'm going to delete that and we'll start it again. Right, delete the whole thing. Go away. Right, let's start that again. Right, add a global colour. go and choose the blue. Oh, I have to click the blue. That gets me every time. Right, outgoing. Right, operator error. Once you've selected it, you need to click it. That's stupid. That is stupid in here. Right, to add that. So that adds the blue up there. I then select all the bubbles in here and I apply the blue, and it doesn't look like it's done anything at all. But it does mean that I can go in and edit this colour. So if I wanted this to be a totally different colour, what options have we got in here? That's swatches. Let's say we want hex sliders. If all of a sudden that was like a pinkish colour, let's make it garish, really garish. That should change that. So are you going to make me a liar? You're not even disappearing, are you? There you go. So a global colour will apply. So if I was designing this with repurposing in mind, I would take the time and I would do all of that. And then you can have it formatted one way or have it formatted another. You could even have its publisher that this is in. But if somebody said to you, yeah, the rounding doesn't look like that, you can even fix the rounding. So if you wanted the rounding to be different, you could do that as well. I will very quickly show you how you would deal with that. So let's say you had a rounded rectangle. I'm just going to put this down here out of the way. That rounded rectangle does not look like these rounded rectangles. So it has a certain shape with it. It looks more like that at the moment. Right, and let's say we were going to want a certain number of those things. In Publisher, you would just duplicate them. You could have them as an asset, but you would only get a starting point. But if you switch over to the designer persona, and you think, that's my button, I'm happy with my button, and you go into your assets, which are over here. So I'm going to go into the defaults. Let's just add it over there. So in here, I'm going to add this. No, I know. What am I saying? I'm lying to you. Ignore me. Right, I'm not going to make it an asset. That's the whole point of being in here, woman. No, I'm going to make it a symbol. Symbols are better than assets. Right, I'm going to create one from that. So that's my symbol. Now, it would make sense to rename that and call that like bubble. Right, so there's my bubble. This one should be one of my bubbles at this point. So where's my bubble over here? I've got my 5, I can see that. I am not seeing this one. And yet you are selected. Right, so it's in a symbol there. There is my bubble. Right, but if I add a couple more of these from on here, right, the whole point of a symbol is that they stay the same. So if I go in here with my symbol and I change them so it's a little squarer, it changes them all, which is fabulous. Now, if I then switch back from the designer persona and I go back to Publisher, there's my shapes. Publisher has no way of accessing any interface to a symbol. It doesn't, I won't say it doesn't support it, because obviously if I'm in here and I do that, it does support it. But there's no interface to support it. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. So if I was doing this wholly properly, I would have actually created symbols of these things and done it that way. But for a demonstration and what I was actually showing, I didn't need to do that. But thinking ahead in terms of what if this and what if that, that is a way to deal with it. Use a symbol instead, but you do need Affinity Designer and you do need Studio Link to link between the two of them. Oh, Jammy's turned up. Hello! And hello, other half of Jammy. Right. Samsung usually copies Apple. I honestly don't think I've ever seen text on Android. I need to have a look, don't I? But yes, you've got global colours to go at. You've got symbols to go at. The symbols could change the colour as well. So at the moment, that's that lurid colour. But if I made that blue, they would all change to blue. So it's all the little things that are demonstrated, but they're usually demonstrated independently, and then you need to pull them all together when you're creating proper work. Which Mike learnt this week, didn't you? Oh, he had a whole 2-hour tutorial from me on Publisher. Did you enjoy it? You didn't enjoy the first session, did you, where there was a lot of shouting?
No.
Oh, talk about stress. Don't. It's like teaching your other half to drive, isn't it? Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, just leave it alone. Right, okay, if that is it for questions, we will head back over here. Oh, down in London for Christmas, do. Right, so I'm going to just wrap that up. I showed 3 different ways of achieving virtually the same thing. You can apply following styles as you type. So once you've linked the styles together, when you press enter, it will apply the next style and the next one and the next one. The second way was where I had my content in a text file and I copied into paste queue and then pasted the first item in, applied the first style, and when I pasted all the rest in with enter, paste, the style was applied automatically. It would be unnecessary to do all of the manual copying if Serif added the InDesign option of chaining the styles automatically. That would be grand, but it's not there yet. And the third option was getting clever with find and replace. Find and replace is amazing. I know we're still concerned about grep find and replace and all of that, but you've seen what you can achieve. Yes, you need a hook to do it, but, you know, learn your text editor. Get to know your text editor. Get an advanced text editor. Get to know it. And you can do so much in there before the content even hits Publisher that you may then not need to do the kind of dance that you have to do. And all of that was in relation to a question that was asked last week, which was about how you would format text conversations, which was great. So if you have a question like that, let me know. Because it gives me something to chew on all week, doesn't it? And curse about and say I need an easier way. But I enjoyed that. So thank you for the question. Right, what do we have coming up? Loads. Right, we're back next week, 16th. How is it the 16th next week? In my mind, it's still February 2020. Do you remember when we last went out?
I do.
Yeah. Our last trip out, shamefully, was Tesco's, wasn't it?
In my DJ.
In Mike's dinner jacket and me in my best finery. That was the last place we went. And then we've got the night before Christmas, 23rd, and we will be here on the 30th. You will not want to miss the 30th. We're going behind the scenes of the Advent calendar on the 30th. Talking of the Advent calendar, you are there with the Advent calendar, aren't you? Tell me you are. It's a mail every day. And in it, there's various freebies, all kinds of stuff. Today's was mock-ups. I don't think I include the iPhone 14 because I was looking for a free one. Even though I've got Envato Elements, I was looking for a free one and they were all a bit off. So I thought for speed, I'll just get that one. But we have good quality stuff and we are 9 days into it. I know what's coming tomorrow, but I'm not saying. It's a surprise, but you'll like it. Oh, in fact, I do know what it is, and it's already sorted, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, it's actually sorted, which means
it's already scheduled.
Yes, I'm not going to be up till silly o'clock creating something or listing something. It's already done. So, only another 15 days to go then. I've been promising you something for a while, haven't I? And I've been very, very remiss in actually putting a date on it. But I spoke with Mike and we pondered and we looked at the World Cup calendar and we foolishly decided that we would avoid the semi-final days. Although, can I just honestly say I don't think we're going to need to, but never mind. I think we could be with Holland on the way home. But in the event that we're not, it won't be Tuesday and Wednesday. No, it's Monday. That's like 3 days. Monday the 12th. We haven't got a time yet, have we? Are we going for 8? Or 9? You'll find out on YouTube. It'll be a surprise. be surprised when I add it. But it's happening. It's happening. It's the desktop version. It is the new features in version 2 and a Q&A. If you've got any questions about it beforehand, send them in. Otherwise, provide them on the night and I will do my best to answer them all. So it's happening. It's happening on Monday. Right, as I said, we are back next week. So it's 173 next week. And of course, there's loads and loads of stuff available on demand, including the first new features and Q&A, which was Publisher. That one is up there and available on demand. And there is Publisher for iPad, which is also up there, available on demand. All of my stuff is at youtube.com/Elaine Giles. There is an After Hours playlist. It goes all the way back to 2018. I don't know how we've managed that either. You will find it at macbites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. Eventually there'll be a MacBites. I'm not putting a year on that anymore, but there will be one, because when you least expect it, there'll be a new MacBites. Do you know what is scary with that, Mike? It's been 3/4 ready for 3 weeks. It was the gas man that completely threw me off my schedule with it. I should sue him. Mind you, he sent a bill this week, didn't he?
He did.
How did he manage to get that here when my stylus is still MIA?
Along with my electricity bill.
Nobody wants the electricity bill, Mike. The longer that's not here, the less we have to think about it.
Your credit card bill's here. I'll bring that up.
I'm with Ken. Let's just put all the bills together and burn them for heat. And explain what we've done. Yeah, that would work. I see no problem with that. Right, we love you guys. We hope you love us too. If you do, there is a like button down there. Give that button a thump. There is also my mailing list. There'll be a mail this weekend, so now would be a good time to subscribe, because I'll have to explain about the session on Monday when I've decided what time it is. We're threatened with snow, so that could interrupt us somewhat. But yeah, sign up. Then there's the MacBites mail. That's where all the advent calendar stuff is happening. macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. And we are on Slack. Carrying on the conversation. Having said that, I've been noticeable by my absence this week because I've been banging my head on a brick wall trying to make text conversations work, but now they do. So now I can go in and say hello again. If you would like to join us, that's at macbites.co.uk/Slack. Right. Do we have any questions before I start pondering?
No.
Oh, so I can ponder my mince pies, can
Yes.
I? Oh, excellent. Oh, Jammy is on to March 2020 of the After Hours Marathon. Do let us know when that's complete, because I'm not sure if anybody has done the entire marathon. We have a Hall of Fame. Tracy was the last one in there because she'd done the entire Marooned Marathon, which is epic. But I've got a feeling, that 172 MacBites After Hours might actually be more than 500 Maroons. What do you think? I'll get my spreadsheet onto that. That's his job for this week, to work that out. Oh, Kim enjoyed it. Excellent. You're hoping I find a Yule log. I wouldn't mind, but that Yule log that was in that picture was a replacement for the Yule log we really wanted. There's only one place stock gluten-free Yule log, and it's Asda. But the thing is, there's a minimum order of about, is it £40?
Yeah.
And then a delivery charge on top of that. And all you want is a £3.50 Yule log that's going to cost you £50 now. But it's Christmas and you want a Yule log. It's absolutely ludicrous. Tracy's put a vote in for 9. 9, you should have returned. You'd rather be in the gym than with us. Oh, no. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. Oh, Tracy's done the double. Yes, I remember putting it on a slide that you had. So I think you're top of the leaderboard at the moment. Absolutely. You have to stop and start a lot. Well, Pete was behind by quite a few, wasn't he? I think he's declared bankruptcy and starting again, just picking it up from now and be done. You could mentally tell yourself that you're not going to learn anything if it was about version 1. You'd be wrong, because so much of the principle is the principle. But, if you're lagging behind, you could do that. Oh, you have to, doctor's orders. I've not seen a doctor since 92. What year did Busby die? Was it 94?
94.
94 was the last time, and I was determined. It was becoming like macabre as far as I was concerned, that people were weeping and wailing that Matt Busby had died. And I knew Matt Busby, and I'd met Matt Busby, and he lived up the road. But I thought, I'm not going to be one of the ones that stands there maudlin watching the coffin go past. And I was at the College of Law at the time, doing postgrad in law, and I was ill. Ill in inverted commas, wasn't I, Mike? Yeah, I was ill in terms of I needed a sick note because I had no intention of going in. I was teaching myself at home and paying them for the privilege. I'm not going to worry about that. So I'd gone in for a sick note. So I'm sitting there in the doctor's minding my own business. I glanced out the window and there was the funeral cortege going past. And I remember pinging you and saying, you're not going to believe this. So yes, I managed to attend the funeral and get my sick note. But that was the last time I saw them. I have no desire to see them again whatsoever. So no, doctor doesn't tell me anything. The only marooned that Tracy's missing is the 1,000-day reunion. Oh, it's kicking around, Tracy, somewhere. Might make a note. I haven't processed the 1,000-day reunion. Naughty, naughty. But it is kicking around. I know I've got it. So I will make that and I will add it to the playlist. Although I think we made the playlist complete, didn't we? Oh, they'll never notice. We'll slip another one in. They'll never notice. And then you're back unassailable, I think, Tracy. You are top of the leaderboard and it's completely unassailable now. Having said that, Jane did the marathon 3 times, didn't she? But I don't know if she's done the marooned one. We'll have to find out. And Minster did it 3 times as well. Gluttons for punishment is what I find. I found today from a group that I'm in that they, and I pay for the privilege of being in this group. You'll love this. This is me all over. And I was thinking that I went into this session because they said it was going to be about a certain topic. The first words out of their mouth were, yeah, we're not doing that topic today. So I'm like, really? I've turned up for that topic. It was magnificent. It was a great session. And at the end, he said, well, to keep yourself occupied, you could listen to the members only podcast. And I did one of those screeching double takes that you do in a cartoon. I thought, what members only podcast? When did this happen? So I gets the link for it. I goes to it. It wasn't actually a link to the podcast. It was a link to a page that had a link to the podcast. So obviously I'm trying to do 3 things at once and I keep pressing this thing and it's not a podcast. So I find the link, I go to my podcast listener of choice, which is Downcast, and I put the link in. Eventually I managed to get it to work. I put the link in and it said, here's the podcast. And there was 1 episode and I thought, right, they've only just started. And then in the other bit where it says other shows in the feed, I clicked over to that. There's actually 48 episodes and I had no idea. So now I've got a little marathon of my own to do. So I'll be able to channel my inner Tracy for that. How did I miss they had a members only podcast for a year? I've no idea. And it's really good. So I'm going to enjoy myself. That's what I'm going to do this week. Because I've been watching far too many YouTube videos about dogs, haven't I? I do love my YouTube videos about dogs. And I found one about Sammy this week, so I was glued. And Lola's fine, isn't she? She's at that stage where she needs to understand that she either eats, she has heat or eat, one or the other. But no, she's convinced she can have both. So she's demanding that the electric blanket be turned on. Where the rest of us are thinking, how can we keep warm with 2 twigs and a £5 note? And the dog food, I have been keeping you apprised of the dog food. She has these treats called Dentasticks. Kim approved, tooth healthy Dentasticks. They started at $14.99 and we got them discounted to £12.50. This is for 112 of these sticks. £61.99 this week. I think I mentioned that on Marooned. So she's grumpy that she's not got the right Dentasticks as well. She's got the Tesco ones and she doesn't like them. They're too soft, aren't they? They're like bendy and chewy. And the other ones are much harder and they last her longer. But at £61.99, I couldn't do it. Got the electricity bill to think about. So she had half my dinner, which was lamb steak. So she enjoyed herself. She's not starving. Don't worry about her. Oh, Tracy's going to attempt the triple. I shall look forward to that. I will. Right, okay. If we have no questions and I'm lusting after my mince pie, I shall go off and have something to eat. So, last call for questions. Stage Manager on iPad. Oh, I did turn it on. It lasted 4 seconds and then I turned it off. It's horrific. I'm sure it's one of those things that when you get used to it and you take your brain out and you dip it in apple Kool-Aid and then you put your brain back in, you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's not happening. So I turned it off. I thought they'll have to make a 17-inch iPad, the one I've been predicting for the last 10 years, just to accommodate Stage Manager. And when they said it's on the Mac as well, I'm like, not on mine, it's not. No, that's not happening. I don't understand why you can't just use Command and Tab. And yes, I augment it with a few other shortcut keys, but that's the way forward. Stage Manager is not the way for me. Oh, they do things called Lidl Dentistics. The trouble is, Tracy, Lidl don't deliver. So unless I can find somebody who's prepared to admit that they shop in Lidl and can drop some off, because we don't head out for food, not happening. Have you noticed the other thing that came out today, Mike, in relation to this Royal Mail strike?
No.
What can't they deliver? In 2 ways. They can't deliver it to the person requesting it. They can't deliver it to the person that they would send it to. And they can't deliver, and this should give you a clue, the result back to the person who requested the COVID test. So the figures for COVID are up the wall. That's nice. How on earth can the NHS plan for anything when you've got this kind of thing going on? I think there's certain things. I mean, my stylus, right, it doesn't matter if it's January. I'm just grumpy about it. I wanted to unbox it. But, you know, it's a stylus. It doesn't matter. I'm not desperate. But there are medical tests and stuff that matters greatly. I'm thinking of something that they said they couldn't deliver with Mum. Do you remember? It was literally 8 years ago this month. She suddenly got really bad. So I gets onto Amazon because trying to get anything from the NHS is just a joke. So it was like, oh, you can ring the NHS and they'll give you that. And I thought, yeah. But we'd already been told at this stage that she had like days. So I said, I can't wait days. I'll get onto Amazon. And it was a commode. Now, obviously, they should provide that. So I orders a commode. Obviously, if I'm ordering a commode, it's an emergency. Same day delivery, they said. They lost it, didn't they? They lost it between the depot and my front door. I tore them a new one. And I mean tore them a new one. They had never heard anything like it. I got the commode the same day when they found it. Was that... Did they... Well, I've got this recollection, and I could be wrong. I've got this recollection that they sent it parcel fast.
I can't remember.
Well, parcel fast never got... Whoever they sent it with, Yodel, parcel fast, they're all as bad as one another. Whoever they sent it with, they didn't make it to the front door. But the area manager did, with a commode in the back of his car. He went to the depot himself and brought it round. And I was sweetness and light when he got here. He must have thought he was going to place Godzilla. And I was sweetness and light when he got here because I needed a commode and failure was not an option. So I was all ready to head off to the NHS and just come back with one. But it wasn't needed in the end. So I can live without my stylus, but I think there are things that should be given priority. And COVID tests is one of them. But can you imagine? There's probably a warehouse somewhere with 3 million COVID tests stacked up. And somebody's got to wander in there and touch them. Oh, no, not happening to me. Oh, Mr. T's been looking for a whiteboard app. Doesn't cost the earth. 2 of those. One is Jamboard, if you've tried that. I like that one. That's a Google one. Microsoft Whiteboard. And when's the next update? What's that Apple thing called? Is it Flexi something? Free something? Freeform?
Freeform, that's what...
Freeform, yeah. So there's 3 of those. And there are ones. What was that one you had? The Illustrator one used to be amazing, the Adobe one. I don't know,
but it's probably dead by now.
Do you remember Adobe Ideas? It was fantastic. And they binned it. And I'm like, why did you bin it? It was amazing. They then replaced it with Illustrator, Illustrator Draw. And then that got binned. But Ideas was fantastic. But there's other ones. You had one, and it was something to do with, you could do it free. But if you wanted multiple people to collaborate on it, you had to pay per person or something, and it worked with AirDrop. Do you remember it?
I do. I can't remember its name.
You wrote a blog post on it.
I did. I was just thinking.
But I think that might still be going. But if it is, it went the way some of these apps go, where they go like businessy, and they want you to have like 50 users, which is unfortunate. There's also other services that you might like Miro.
Whiteboard HD.
That was it. It was a good app, that. That was good. Not as good as Adobe Ideas. I loved Adobe Ideas. I really did. I don't know with Freeform. People who have tried it in beta are saying it's amazing. And it's a bit like Apple Notes, isn't it? It's just there. So you know if you use it and you then want to send something to somebody, they've got the app to see it. But in terms of if you want it to be collaborative, Whiteboard's okay from Microsoft, but Jamboard's better. So I will bring Jamboard up and I'll draw something on it when I'm trying to explain something to Mike.
Yeah, it's still going.
Is it?
£4.99.
Well, that's not bad then.
Yeah.
Because you used that, what, 8 years ago? Stick the link in for that one.
What I'm doing.
That was good back in the day.
Yeah, 8 years ago, 2014.
You would think there would be a lot more, or that they would have progressed, but they don't seem to have done, to be honest. Oh, that's a good idea from Richard. Have you tried numbers? You can delete the spreadsheet and use a whiteboard type interface. That's a good idea. That is a good idea. I guess Keynote would work the same way, wouldn't it? You wouldn't even have to delete the spreadsheet. It depends how you want to interact with it. If you're drawing it with a pencil, a whiteboard app would probably have an advantage over a standard app. It depends what information you're putting in it. If you're drawing shapes, a dedicated app for that. But there's apps like Procreate. I can't remember if that's a paid for one. You pay for Procreate. What was the other one? Notes apps work pretty well for that. GoodNotes. And don't forget, GoodNotes is free for 3 notebooks. That works brilliantly. You've got shapes in it. You've got connectors in it. They've just changed the text engine in it as well. But with that, you've got stickers as well. Now, by default, you've got like a vertical page, but I think you can do something with that. But that gives you more features when it comes to saving it or exporting it or repurposing it in some kind of way. There's ColorNote. ColorNote's completely free. No desktop app, but you can export to PDF. So that's another option. I don't think there is a completely perfect whiteboard app, and I don't know why not. I must admit, Miro confused me. We use that in Second Brain. When I was going through the Second Brain cohort, quite a few people were using Miro during the live sessions, and I just felt spatially unaware of where I was in the board. You can have like multiple boards in one space, in one like canvas, and they were looking at one and I'm looking at the other. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing with this. But done right, when I've seen a demo from Miro themselves, it's like, oh, that makes total sense. But the idea of like, they had us putting down like our 3 top questions or whatever on a post-it note and then pinning the post-it note. But the thing was, it became like a bizarre pin the tail on the donkey game. They weren't lined up and in the right order. They were just pinned on top of one another. And I just thought, this is a big mess. I would rather have something a little bit more organised. But I can see when they do their demos that, yes, done right. But I don't know what the learning curve would be like on it. So Richard says, Keynote is slightly different to Numbers, as the tables and graphs, etc. are still linked in Numbers, but not in Keynote. Guess it depends on what you're working with. I do love Numbers for layout. It's the one thing, well, there's 2 things. What am I like with dates in Excel? Yeah, bad words are said. But it doesn't do layout very well, Excel, as far as I'm concerned, but Numbers does. But there's some quirks in it. And one of my big problems with Numbers, Keynote and Pages is if you want to use the stuff on your iPad, you need to put it on iCloud. Now, I know you can put the stuff on Dropbox, but you've got to remember that a Mac file from the iWork apps is a folder. and Dropbox doesn't particularly synchronize those kind of things very well. There's also a hard limit on the size of the file, and it's something like 126 meg. It's a ridiculous size. My presentations are way bigger than that. So I have to put them in iCloud. And iCloud deletes my not files, although it has done that, but it unshares files randomly. It deletes slides, that's worse than deleting the file. Because if a file gets deleted, I'll have a backup somewhere. But if it deletes a couple of slides out of a file, how will I know? And you know that's what it was doing. That was how come I switched to PowerPoint. And now I love PowerPoint. I loved Keynote and I didn't want to leave it. And I went very, very grumbly to PowerPoint. And I said, if it can't do this, I can't use it. If it can't do that, I can't use it. And I worked around all of the deficiencies and concentrated on the things that were better. And now I use that. So I would be concerned using the Apple apps that stuff might just vanish and insidiously in a way that you wouldn't necessarily notice. Right, okay then. I am going to head off and get my last one, my last mince pie. But as I say, we'll be back on Monday. No, I don't know what time, but we'll be back on Monday. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for Affinity Designer. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, let us know. I would love to hear it. Oh, Graham's off to bed as well with his electric blanket. Excellent, excellent. So, from me, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.